Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my December mid-month wrap-up. So in the first half of December, from the 1st through the 15th, I managed to complete a total of 12 books. So I'm pretty happy with that. If you saw my December TBR video, then you know my TBR for this month is pretty ambitious, and I'm pretty on track, which is good because I actually realized that there's another challenge that I'd forgotten about, which was to read a book off someone else's shelf. So I borrowed a book off my brother's girlfriend, Shakara, that I also need to read before the end of the month. And then, of course, I also have a library book that shouldn't have been due this month, but has a bunch of holds on it and I can't renew it. And so that is due this month now as well, so I'm hoping to get to that book as well. So there's even more books being added to my TBR, so even though I am kind of on track, I really need to keep pushing. But I am hoping that once I finish work on the 22nd, I'm going to be able to get a lot read, like from that day through the 31st. So fingers crossed I can still get everything read that I need to. But let's jump straight in and talk about the 12 books that I did manage to complete in the first half of December. So the first book I completed in the month of December was These Broken Stars by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. So this is a young adult sci-fi novel about two people who are on a spaceship, and then there is this big crash of this spaceship, and they are basically like the sole survivors of this big disaster, and they end up kind of on this deserted planet and are kind of trying to survive. So it's kind of like a survival story in a way as well, and then there's like some weird shit going down on this planet that they've landed on. And it is told in dual perspective from both Lilac and Tava. They are the two main characters. I enjoyed this, but I had some problems with it. I thought that Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner, like the two authors, I couldn't tell that two different people wrote this, so that's a good thing. Like I don't know if one of them wrote one character and one wrote the other, or how it worked, but you couldn't tell two different people wrote this, so that was good in terms of the two authors. I thought that the two main characters had good chemistry. I thought there was good character development for Lilac in particular. But I did think that the book was a little bit slow. I thought the villain was very underdeveloped, and I thought that the last 50 pages of the book were quite confusing and felt a little bit rushed. So there were some things about this that I really liked, but some things I didn't love, but I did enjoy it overall, and in the end I gave this one 3.5 stars. Next, I read This Night So Dark by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. So this is a little novella, which is book 0.5 in the series, so it is set before the events of book 1. I understand what they were trying to achieve by including this novella in the series, but overall I just kind of found it a little bit dull, to be honest, and it wasn't my favorite novella, and in the end I gave it 2.5 stars. Next, I moved on to book 2 in the series, which is This Shattered World by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. So this is kind of a companion series in that each of the 3 books within the series follows a different 2 characters. So it was Lilac and Tava in the first book. In this book, it is Jubilee and Flynn. And so even though each book follows different characters, there is an overarching plot to the series. So I wouldn't say that you could read these on their own, because there is, like I say, a plot that's kind of running throughout the trilogy, but they do follow different characters. I didn't enjoy this one as much as book 1. I thought the romance in this one was a little underdeveloped. I liked that we got to see a lot more of the world in this one. One of my favorite things about this was the diversity that started to be included in the series. So one of the main characters, Jubilee, it's a sci-fi and it's set way in the future, but the main character is still of half Chinese descent, and there are also normalized gay and lesbian relationships in this series, and it's not ever explained that now in the future we don't care about these things anymore. It's just in there that, oh, blah blah blah, and he's married to a man, and blah blah blah, and she's married to a woman, and it's just mentioned in passing. And I really liked that it was such a normal thing, and that the authors didn't feel like they had to explain that now in the future it was okay, that it just was okay. So I thought the diversity in this was really good. I liked that we got to see, I think I already said this, but I liked that we got to see a lot more of the world. So in the end, I didn't enjoy this quite as much as book one, but there were some things about this that I thought had improved on the first book, some things that I didn't like. In the end, I gave this one 3.5 stars as well. Next, I finished the trilogy with Their Fractured Light by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. So I really liked that in this one we got all of the characters kind of coming together. So you do have characters from the first and second book and the new characters from this third one all kind of coming together, which was really good. This one was a lot more action-packed than the first two. I will say that I thought that the romance in this one was a lot more insta-lovey than the first two, which like wasn't my favorite. But overall, it was an enjoyable conclusion to the series. And again, I gave this one 3.5 stars. So I did enjoy the trilogy overall. It's not my favorite trilogy like by a long shot, but it is a really enjoyable trilogy overall. Next, I read Beauty and the Best Man by Maureen Child. So this is just a really short romance novella. It is a Mills and Boon novella, I believe, and I really didn't like this. I thought this was just basically bad, and I thought it had basically every romance stereotype in it, and I just didn't think it was good, and I gave it 2 stars. Next, I read The Tycoon's Make-Believe Fiancé by Elizabeth Lennox. This is another really short romance novella, and once again, I thought this was really bad. Not only was this one bad and have all of the like romance stereotypes in it, but in my opinion, it had all of the really like even more so problematic stereotypes that you find in a lot of romance novels. And again, I just really didn't like this, and this one I gave 1.5 stars. Next, I read Forbidden by Tabitha Suzuma. So this is a YA contemporary novel that follows a sibling relationship. So it is a very taboo subject matter, but most of the reviews that I hear of this book are pretty positive. I have probably an unpopular opinion. I did not like this book. And to each their own, like people who enjoy it, that you're entitled to your opinion, that's fine. But I really can't see what's good about this book. I thought the writing was not great. I thought the book was really, really predictable. I thought that a lot of the things that the author was trying to do, I just didn't think that she did successfully. Like the main character, Loken, has very obvious like anxiety, particularly like social anxiety, and she just never really addresses it properly. I didn't think, as well as with the bad writing, there's the 2 perspectives from Loken and Maya. They're the brother and sister who are like falling in love. I also didn't like that the back tells you that they're going to fall in love, but then a whole big chunk of the story is them falling in love, even though you know it's going to happen. That's just a pet peeve of mine. But that their 2 perspectives, I couldn't tell apart. I actually was constantly in this, flipping back to the start of the chapter to remind myself like whose perspective I was reading. I liked what the author was trying to do in some of the commentary that she was trying to put in here on neglected children. So the background of this is that Loken and Maya are the 2 oldest of 5 children, and their father has kind of abandoned the family and they are living just with their mother, but their mother is an alcoholic who is basically never at home. She's got this new boyfriend, she's spending all her time with him and at his place, and Loken and Maya, as the 2 oldest children, are basically raising their younger siblings. And I liked what she was trying to do in like speaking about neglected children and what like can kind of happen with that, but I didn't like it. I didn't think it was good. And I understand that's not what other people thought about it. There's a lot of really positive reviews of this, but I personally just really didn't enjoy it, and I gave this 1.5 stars. Next on audio, I listened to Lies She Told by Kate Holohan. This one is narrated by Amy McFadden and Lisa Larson. So this is an adult mystery thriller novel about a woman named Liza who is an author, and her husband have been trying to have a baby. And they've been really struggling to have a baby, and it's putting quite a strain on their relationship. In addition to that, Liza is trying to write her next book. So she's written a couple of books, but her first book was her most popular, and nothing she's written since has kind of lived up to it. And she's under a lot of pressure from like her publishing company and her editor. In addition to that, her husband's best friend, Nick, is missing, and her husband is really like strained from his best friend being missing. And it tells you in the synopsis that then her husband's best friend's body is found, and her husband is suspected of the crime. That's my one main bone of contention with this book, was that the best friend's body does not turn up until more than 50% of the way through the book. And I was like, but we know that he's dead because you told us in the synopsis, but then they don't find out that he's dead, and that is just a massive pet peeve of mine. Don't put it in the synopsis if it doesn't happen until 50% of the way through the book. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed this book. It's making it sound like I didn't. I did. So in addition to all of that that's going on, you also have the main character, Liza, is writing this novel that she's under pressure to write, and a lot of the aspects of this book are mirroring things that are going on in her life. And so you're getting chapters from Liza and what's going on with her, and then you're also getting chapters of her book that she's writing about Beth. So I thought this was pretty well done. I liked that at the beginning, kind of at the start of the novel, the two different like perspectives are quite distinct and they were really easy to tell apart. But as the story goes on and their lives start to mirror each other more, the perspectives kind of started to merge a bit more, which I thought was really well done. And I even thought that the two narrators had like quite a similar sound, which I thought also worked really well for this novel. I will say that it was very predictable in my opinion. Like, I wasn't shocked by anything that happened in it, but overall I thought it was really well written and really well done, and I personally really enjoyed it, and I gave this 4 stars. Next, I read Coraline by Neil Gaiman. So this is a children's book that follows a little girl named Coraline who basically has moved into a new home with her parents, and she doesn't get a lot of attention from her parents, and one day she finds this door that leads into like this other world. I'm not really going to say too much more than that. It's a children's like creepy novel. I enjoyed this. I've seen the movie of this and I really enjoyed the movie, although as I've said before, I think the movie is creepy AF and I can't believe that it's a children's movie. And like, even in this book, this is a children's book, it has a few illustrations in it. You tell me that that is not terrifying. Is this for children? I don't know. I would have been terrified by that as a child. Anyway, so I really love like the creepy vibe and all that of the book. I personally think the movie's better. I enjoyed the movie better. I did really enjoy this, but I think I would have liked this more had I read it when I was a child. I think this would have been right up my street when I was a kid. I did think this had a really good message in it about not getting everything you want in life, and that just because maybe your parents are really busy and don't show you a lot of attention doesn't mean that your parents don't love you. I thought that was a really good message to put into a children's book, because I'm sure that's something that a lot of children experience, and when their parents are really busy and work a lot, that they feel like their parents maybe don't love them. But I thought that had a good message, but I just didn't think this was as well done as what the movie is. So yeah, I did enjoy this. I gave it 3.5 stars. Next, I read Second Chance Summer by Morgan Matson. I'm not going to talk too much about this because I don't know if I can talk about this without crying. This is a YA contemporary novel that follows our main character Taylor, whose family have just found out that her father has terminal pancreatic cancer and he's only been given 3 months to live, and he wants to spend his final months spending the summer up at their lake house where they haven't been for the past 5 years. So they go up to this summer to their lake house for the summer, and Taylor is a bit anxious about this because, I mean, not only is she dealing with the terminal diagnosis for her father, but she hasn't been back she left things on bad terms with a couple of people that she used to spend the summer with, and she hasn't seen them since, and she's going to have to probably confront these people back up when she goes there. This was beautiful. I thought this was just a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous book. This book broke me. I felt broken when I finished reading this. I sobbed, like, gut-wrenching, like, you know, body shaking type sobbing was what was happening when I was reading this. Like, I got to about 80 pages to go, and I was on the bus on the way home, and I purposely put this down, even though I had probably 20 minutes left of my bus ride, because I knew that I was probably going to get to a point in the story that was going to make me start crying, and I did not want to do it in public because I knew that it wasn't going to be the type of crying that I could hide on the bus. So I put it down and waited till I got home, and that was a very wise decision because, as I mentioned, I sobbed hard. I just think this is a fabulous, fabulous book, and it had a lot of great messages in it. I just thought it was really, really beautiful. I gave it 5 stars. I'm really happy to have another 5-star read. If you've been watching my channel, then you know that 5-star reads have been thin on the ground for me in 2017, but this book was beautiful. Next on audio, I listened to A Lady by Midnight by Tessa Dare. This is narrated by Caroline Morris and is the 3rd book in the Spindle Cove series. I really enjoyed this, as I do all of Tessa Dare's romance novels. I really loved that in this one in particular, we have the introduction of a lesbian side character, and she is completely accepted by her family, if not by society, but I've never seen a gay or lesbian character in any kind of like sexy romance book, so I thought that was a really great addition that Tessa Dare put in. And not only that, but this is a lesbian character who prefers to wear masculine clothes, but at one point she is wearing like a fancy dress and she says, oh, sometimes I like to wear dresses too. And I was just like, yes, you know, just because you like to dress masculine sometimes doesn't mean you have to always dress masculine. She can still like to put on a fancy dress sometimes. So I just thought the representation was actually really well done. From my perspective, do not identify as lesbian, so I can't speak to it on that basis, but as far as I could tell, the representation was really good. This is one of the Tessa Dare books that I probably enjoyed the most. I did only give it 3.5 stars, and that is because there was one part of the book where that just really bothered me, that one of the main characters, there's like a communication issue, and she decides that like she was wrong about it, and I was just like, no, you weren't. You were totally within your rights to be pissed about that. And so that kind of bothered me, but apart from that, I did really, really enjoy this, and in the end, I gave this one 3.5 stars. The final book that I read in the first half of December is The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie. This is the 13th book in the Hercule Poirot series. I enjoyed this one. It's not my favorite in the series by a long stretch, but Agatha Christie is just phenomenal to me. I know that there's some issues with, like, she has some racist things and such in her books, and I know her books are very much a product, like, of their time, but she tried, like, so many different, every time I read one of her books, she's trying something new, and again, in this one, it was a completely different to the 12 books that had come prior to it, and I just really, kudos to her, because, you know, this book was published originally in 1936, and I just think she was really, really ahead of her time in some ways. And yeah, it wasn't my favorite in the series, but like I said, I really liked what she was trying to, what she did do with this book, but it just wasn't my favorite, but I did still really enjoy it, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. So those were all of the books that I read in the first half of December. I would love to chat in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, if you have any thoughts. If you've got any differing opinions from me, I'd love to chat about them down below. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. But that's all I've got for this video today. Bye, guys.